You thought the worst part would be dying, that somewhere on the road to Mordor, the ring would finally become too heavy, or the hunger too sharp, or the fear too much to survive. You never imagined you would live long enough to discover the real horror, that the ring did not need to kill you to ruin you. By the time it reached Mount Doom, there was almost nothing left inside you that still belonged to yourself. The first time you understood what you were carrying, you were standing on a road in the dark. You had left the Shire 3 days ago. 3 days, and already the world had become unrecognizable. No warmth, no pipeweed, no sound of the gaffer next door. Just 4 hobbits on a road that kept getting darker, carrying something none of you fully understood yet, toward a plan that amounted to get to Bree and hope. Then the horse stopped. You didn't hear the rider before you felt it. That is the thing nobody tells you about true terror, that it arrives in the body before the mind has time to prepare a response. The air changed. The night, which had already been dark, became a different quality of dark. And then it was there, at the end of the road, and it had no face, and it was looking for something. It was looking for you. You pressed into the bank, every instinct screaming at you to put it on, and you didn't understand why. You didn't understand what was speaking, what was already, from the very first night, beginning to use your own impulses against you. You just ran. But here is what stayed with you, what has never left you since that night on the road. It wasn't the rider that terrified you most. It was how badly you wanted to answer it. Rivendell should have been the end of it. You were stabbed on Weathertop, a Morgul blade, driven into your shoulder by a Nazgul while your friends watched and could do nothing, and you rode through the night half dead, half something else. The wound pulling you toward a world of shadow that you could see but couldn't name. You arrived in Rivendell barely alive. They healed you, fed you, put you in a clean room with a soft bed and people who knew what they were doing. You could have stopped there. Nobody would have blamed you. Nobody would have said a word. But you sat in that council, and you listened to men and elves and dwarves argue about who should carry it forward, and something moved in you. Not the ring, not yet. Something older and quieter, and entirely your own, and you stood up before you'd finished deciding to stand up. I will take it. 4 words. The most expensive thing you have ever said. The fellowship formed around those 4 words. 9 of you. Setting out from Rivendell into a world that dwarfed everything you had ever known. Mountains, darkness, mines carved through the bones of the earth, the growing shadow in the east pressing against everything like a hand against glass. You walked. You climbed. You descended into places the sun had never reached, and somewhere in the deep places of the world, when the fellowship began to crack under the weight of what they were carrying, you felt it for the first time, clearly, undeniably, the ring thinking. Not pulling, not whispering, thinking, assessing each member of the fellowship the way a general assesses a battlefield, finding weaknesses, starting with the ones closest to you. Boromir was a good man. You need to say that first, before anything else, because what happened on Amon Hen was not the act of a bad man. It was the act of a good man who had been hollowed out so carefully, so gradually, that he didn't notice the hollowing until his hands were already reaching. He came to you in the woods, reasonable at first, just talking, just making the case, the same case he had been making since Rivendell, his city, his people. The ring could save them. Surely you could see that. Surely you weren't so small, so selfish, so hobbit, as to let the world burn when salvation was right there on your finger. And then his eyes changed. You had seen that change before, on the road, in the mines, in the mirror of your own face on dark mornings when the wound in your shoulder ached and the ring felt heavier than the day before. You knew what had moved behind his eyes because it had been moving behind yours for weeks. You ran, not from Boromir, from what Boromir had just shown you, that no one was safe from it, that the fellowship, the plan, the careful architecture of hope that 9 people had built together, it was already rubble. It had been rubble for a long time. You put the ring on and you crossed the river alone, and you didn't look back because looking back would have meant seeing Sam's face. and Sam's face would have stopped you. And you could not be stopped. Not anymore. Not by love. That was the first time you understood how much you had already lost. Gollum found you on the other side. He had been following the ring since the Shire, patient, tireless, pulled by something that made your own compulsion look casual. And you looked at him, this broken, ancient, ruined thing, and you made a choice that everyone else would have called madness. You trusted him, not because you were naive. Not anymore. Naivety had been burned out of you somewhere between Weathertop and the mines. You trusted him because you looked into his eyes and you saw the ring's work up close, saw what it did to a person across decades, across centuries, and the thing that moved in you wasn't pity. It was recognition. You were looking at your own future, and you chose to keep it close where you could see it. But the ring was working on you in other ways now. Quieter ways, more personal. It had moved on from Boromir, from strangers, from easy targets. Now it was working on the one thing it had left, the one person still standing between you and total isolation. Sam. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. It was a word here, a doubt there, Gollum whispering things that were just plausible enough, and the ring amplifying them, and your own exhausted, hollowed, half-gone mind unable to tell any more what was true and what was being fed to you. Sam was reporting back. Sam was going to take it. Sam had never really come for you. He had come for the ring, like everyone else, like everyone always would. You sent him away. The look on his face, that is the thing that lives in you still. Not anger, not even hurt. Just a bewildered, absolute love that had no framework for what you had just done to it. He stood there, and he looked at you, and he didn't understand because there was nothing in Sam that could understand betrayal from you. He left, and Shelob was waiting. You didn't see her until her sting was already in you. One moment the tunnel, the darkness, Gollum's promise of safety, and then white agony, and the ground coming up to meet you, and the ring, suddenly, terribly cold against your chest. You went down. And the last thing you thought, lying there in the dark, was not of the quest, not of Mordor, not of the fire. You thought of Sam's face, the look on it when you sent him away, and you understood in the fading that you had just destroyed the last true thing you had left. Sam came back. Of course he did, because Sam was the one thing in all of Middle-earth that the ring could not fully reach, not because he was powerful, not because he was wise, but because what Sam felt for you was so simple and so total that there was nothing in it for the ring to catch hold of. No ambition, no fear, no crack in the foundation. Just Sam. Coming back. He fought off Shelob, carried you out of the tunnel, held you when you couldn't hold yourself and kept moving when moving seemed like a physical impossibility and never, not once, not for a single moment, made you feel like a burden for what you had become. But here is the truth of those final miles that no song will capture. You were gone, not dying, something worse than dying. The ring had its full weight on you now, every step toward Mount Doom, a negotiation between what remained of your will and something ancient and absolute that wanted you on your knees. The sky was ash. The ground was broken glass. Your body had stopped being a body and had become simply a vehicle for carrying the thing to where it needed to go. Sam carried you when the vehicle failed, literally, his arms under you, his feet finding purchase on rock that had no purchase to give, his voice in your ear saying your name the way he had always said it, like it meant something unambiguous, like you were still the person it belonged to. You weren't, but you let him believe it. Because hope, even borrowed hope, even hope that belonged to someone else entirely, was the only thing left between you and the fire. And then you were there, the crack of doom opening beneath you like the world finally showing its teeth. You stood at the edge, and you could not do it. After everything, after the Nazgul and the blade and Rivendell and the mines and Boromir's eyes and Shelob's sting and the ash plains and Sam's arms carrying you up the mountain when your legs had nothing left, after all of it, you stood at the fire, and the ring spoke in your voice, with your words, using your mouth, and you said, The ring is mine. You understand Isildur now. You understood him the moment the words left you, because they were not the ring's words wearing your voice. They were your words, entirely yours. The ring had not overpowered you at the last. It had simply become you, so gradually, so completely, that there was no seam left between where it ended and where you began. Gollum saved the world, not you, not your courage or your will, or the love Sam carried you up the mountain on. Gollum, broken, ruined, centuries hollowed Gollum, bit the ring from your finger and fell into the fire with it, and the mountain came down around you and Sam held you on a rock in the middle of ruin and called your name. And you felt it go. Not relief, not victory, an amputation, a silence where a voice had been. You had carried it so long that the absence of it was its own kind of wound, one that would never fully close, that Rivendell could not heal and the Shire could not reach, and no amount of Sam's cooking or Pippin's laughter or autumn light through your window in Bag End would ever quite touch. And then you went home. That is the word everyone used. Home. As if the Shire was still a place that could hold what came back through its borders. As if what came back was still Frodo. You walked the familiar roads, the hedgerows, the hobbit holes, the smell of pipeweed from open windows and children running in the lane, and the sky at evening that particular gold that once meant everything was all right. It meant nothing now. You could see the warmth of it, the way you can see light through glass. Present, visible, entirely out of reach. You pressed your hands against the life you had left, and it no longer had your shape. You had been remade out there on the road into something the Shire had no name for and no place to put. Sam planted his garden and grew back into himself with a wholeness that bewildered and broke you. Not because you resented it, never that, but because it showed you the size of what you couldn't do. Merry and Pippin carried their wounds like medals, like pub stories, as proof of something survived. Yours was not like that. Yours was not something you could set down on a table and point to. You wrote it down instead, put it in the Red Book, tried to give it edges, make it into something that existed outside your body, something that could be understood by people who still fit inside their lives. But language was built by people who came home whole, and it does not have the words for what you carried back. In the end, there was only one place left to go. The Grey Havens, the ship. Gandalf and Galadriel and Bilbo, old, small, already halfway somewhere else, and Sam standing on the dock with tears on his face and the same eyes he had always had. Brown and warm and completely unable to follow you where you were going. You didn't say what you needed to say because there were no words for it. You had given everything. Your youth, your peace, your ability to sit in a chair in the Shire on an autumn evening and simply be. You had carried the fate of the world in your body, and it had consumed you from the inside. The world had been saved, and the songs had been sung, and the age had turned. And here, at the end of it, standing at the edge of the sea, you were just a hobbit from a place that didn't appear on most maps. Small, hollowed, spent. You step onto the ship. You were going, not towards something, but rather away from the shape of a life that had been yours once and was not yours anymore. Away from the Shire, away from the face of the person who loved you most in the world, but could not save you from this. The shore grew small and smaller. Then it was gone. You did not look back. Could Frodo have destroyed the ring without Gollum? And if he couldn't, if the most important moment in the history of Middle-earth was never truly in his control, what does that mean for everything he sacrificed to get there? Leave your thoughts below. We read every single one. If this video moved you, hit subscribe and come back, because there are countless untold stories in Middle-earth, and we are just getting started.